Good afternoon everyone. Today's video is going to be another tier list video, just like my Jurassic World Evolution 2 video. However, today's video is about the DLC in Planet Zoo. Unlike last video, I want to just go straight into it, so I'm not going to explain the basics to tier lists like I did last time. However, you might notice that I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm not on any tier list websites using a pre-made tier list or anything. No, I decided, as a build in the game itself, to make my own tier list. The very first DLC is, well, is it a DLC? I'm on about the deluxe edition. You get 3 animals, a Komodo dragon, pygmy hippo and Thompson's gazelle, as well as some other goodies that, truth be told, are pretty forgettable. For a proper DLC it would be an easy F tier, but for a bonus for buying the game for a few more quid, it's average. Not quite JW2 Deluxe Edition, but it definitely feels worth the low price. C tier. The Arctic DLC is the first proper DLC, and it definitely was a start. It was made in the winter, therefore a winter theme makes sense. Polar bears, reindeer, Dall sheep, as well as the Arctic wolf, as well as an entirely new DLC campaign mode. The DLC scenery and the theme fits in many different zoos, and hey, Christmas trees and props. You can make the perfect Christmas park, along with the reindeer, some unique animals, and one of the best building themes, as well as 2 additional themes of snow and ice structures. I think this DLC has a massive flaw though, that a few of the comments on the video have called out, the trailers, which is that some parts of DLC might as well have just been added at game launch. Normally I disagree, but this DLC came out just over a month after game launch, so they're in some areas correct. I'd put this in B tier, but it's definitely a very, very high up B tier. Right, I think we needed more of a build up for this, but we've already reached my personal favourite DLC, South America. Released at the very beginning of lockdown, I still remember watching the animal showcases and trailers in the week coming up to the release. It was a DLC which, just from the announcement trailer alone, everybody knew was going to have no flaws. The DLC features a red-eyed tree frog, llama, jaguar, capuchin monkey and a giant anteater. The giant anteater is one of my favourite animals. And temple building theme, I think it's perfect for the DLC, and so is the accompanying bamboo theme. I think it's bamboo, I'm not sure bamboo's in South America, but that's definitely going to be bamboo and nothing else. The colourful decorations, the thatched roofs, the golden objects, there's a gold llama statue and a gold path, as well as a gold wall thing. It's only placed on a wall, but it's basically a wall itself, as well as the soundtrack. S tier. The only issue, I think, is that the DLC doesn't feature as many animals as in some of today's DLC, but it was actually at the time the first DLC with an exhibit animal, which actually made it the DLC with the most animals when it was made at 5. Also, the South American mountain map was a secret map released with this, but I'm not sure why the giant anteater, which has been known to kill people with its claws, is marked as a walk-through habitat animal. However, Planet Zoo would keep this 4 habitat and 1 exhibit animal theme for almost all of its future DLC, such as this next one, the Australia DLC, featuring the red kangaroo, the koala, the blue-tongued skink, the dingo and the southern cassowary. They're not bad animals at all, especially my personal favourites that's on the screen right now. Name 1 animal in Australia that is as famous as any of the guys in this DLC. It is perfect in terms of animals, the theme of recycled objects, as well as this wood theme that is very colourful for some reason, looks very good. However, I do, kind of fail to really see the Australian parts of the architecture as much as I could see the themes back in South America's DLC. However, the Kangaroo Bot 5000, perfection. We wouldn't have had that without the kind of broken, dilapidated theme. That sounds pretty insulting now that I think of it. Surprisingly colourful, despite all that. Lots of recognisable animals, cool architecture, decoration that works in any park. Well, really, especially that corrugated and rusted iron theme, because we already had corrugated iron fences and stuff like that. It's A tier, I just don't really think it's that S tier worthy. But because of how everywhere the different themes are, well done Australia DLC. You're so unique that what makes you unique splits off into branches that are in of themselves unique to each other. That's meant to be a compliment, even if it makes you a bit confusing at times. From a DLC of mostly desert animals, down into the water, we now have ourselves the aquatic DLC. Decoration, let's just get out of the way, very different and not really connected, just like we saw in August of that same year with Australia. But kinda still like Australia, they still work. The king penguin, the grey seal and giant otter were very popular when they were announced. Unfortunately, not much love towards the dwarf caiman and the terrapin, which were, funny enough, my favourites from DLC. I still like the other three, of course. As is obvious by now, the main theme is animals that live by the water. Not a DLC adding aquariums, as a few thought winners announced, to a massive disappointment. The main part of this DLC was the underwater diving, as well as a whole new world of enrichment, feeding items, as well as park building capability that came from that. However, this was added in the free update alongside the DLC, not actually in the DLC itself, which to me feels like this DLC was very dependent on that update. While not as memorable as the last two, the DLC was a nice way to wrap up this game's first full year, B tier. The Southeast Asia DLC was the first animal pack in the game. An animal pack is different to a DLC pack in the fact that animal packs don't feature much in the way of campaign mode or decoration. They solely focus on animals, giving us 8 instead of the usual 5. The Southeast Asia DLC, along with its update, especially the update, is what this channel started on, so you can thank this specific DLC for all this channel. Bias aside, for a DLC that severely lacks in decoration, it still gives you the animal signs for different animals in more unique styles than ever before. The leaf insect, Malayan tapir, babirusa, sunbear, clouded leopard, proboscis monkey, bin, sarong and a doll. Colourful little group of animals. While I loved the Australia DLC for its recognisable and iconic animals, this DLC has great animals for both that they are sometimes recognisable, but some of them are the opposite. We all know the sunbear and the tapir, as well as leopards and the proboscis monkey. However, I actually had to Google whatever a doll was after making that video. Learning new things off DLC, that is something that's only ever happened here for me. My endless knowledge and ability to recognise animals has ruined the wonder of that whole thing for me, kind of. But if you guys get to experience that, I'll rank this high for you just for that. What also came from this DLC was a very positive message that Frontier Developments is one of the game devs that actually listens to their players, as shown by their swift remodelling of the Binturong after the community's complaints in their showcase image, because, let's be real, which one looks more realistic? The Africa DLC. I did an entire video on it when it came out, but that was little new to this channel me, so I was very bad at getting many of my points explained properly, but still, most of my opinions I had on that video have remained the same, especially with the animals. I thought that the animals, those being the white rhinoceros, fennec fox, meerkat, scarab beetle and the African penguin, I thought they were quite nice. A few small yet recognisable animals, as well as a larger one if you prefer them. The scenery as well. I'm just going to show you the pictures because this is perfect. I've been to Egypt many times, and the theme they have here is so accurate it's almost terrifying. Is Egypt all of Africa though? That's my major problem. This isn't an Africa DLC. Aside from the rhino and penguin, this is a North Africa DLC. Nothing in this DLC is remotely what comes to mind when you think of African wildlife, as in like a safari or something. Aside from the rhino, which I think is the bare minimum they should have added, I've also been to South Africa. I saw lions, I saw snakes, I saw elephants, I saw giraffes, I saw monkeys, I saw guinea fowl, I saw everything, even those weird grasshopper things. I saw the maddest thunderstorm of all time there. Not quite an animal, but I saw a lot of things. Planet Zoo, you bothered to update the name of the African elephant to separate the savanna and forest African elephant species. Yet you never further added the other species, the African forest elephant, to avoid confusion. This was the best time to do just that. There are species of lion, of antelope, of anything you could have added. A real Africa DLC would be an animal pack. We already had an African decoration and architecture theme, for the love of God. This is a North Africa DLC. You would have done better, in my opinion, to reserve the rhino and penguin for a real Africa DLC and move everything else into a DLC with 2 other animals from around that region, so that there's a North Africa and Arabian Peninsula DLC. Good animals, good decoration, but absolutely awful execution. C tier, I'm sorry. The North America DLC comes next, and this was a DLC that added a few highly requested animals like the beaver, the alligator, the mountain lion and the moose. We also had the American bullfrog, Arctic fox, California sea lion and the prairie dog. This is, again, an animal pack that offers very little decoration or story, but just wants you to have the most requested American animals. Easy to find a good in, B tier from me. The Europe DLC came at the end of 2021, giving us the lynx, the fallow deer, fire salamander, ibex and badger. A lot of good and memorable animals, as well as a few rather forgettable ones. Still, people have managed to find good in every animal, and that's what people should be able to do. The European architecture theme was really similar to the classic theme we already had, but it never really felt like a copy so much as an extension, and I like that. The addition of the restaurant and the coach and boat zoo entrances, as well as the stalls, were absolutely necessary to expand the game, but again, these are update stuff, not part of the DLC really itself. My other complaint is the animal signs, because they want you to be unique, like having, like the head and the body and the tail and the legs, having you piece them together. After a while it just becomes tedious. They did this with the reindeer in the Arctic DLC 2 years before, but at least that was a 3D model. This time you're just using a puzzle involving flat sheets with animal drawings on them. The alternative neon signs and stained glass were nice enough though. B tier again. And now, after a slight falling off in 2021, we're back with 2022's introduction of the Wetlands DLC. Another animal pack, this time giving us the Asian small clawed otter, the capybara, the lectre, the red crowned crane, the Janubian crested newt, spectacled caiman, water buffalo and the platypus. I'm really upset because I want to make a Perry joke as much as you guys want me to, I just don't know how to write in a script. This DLC heard what I said on unique animals many people don't know, but balanced them with well-known ones, and made it even better. I made a whole video explaining my love for the animals in this DLC when it was announced. This is when it was announced, so this was before you even got to play with them for yourself. So I imagine how much happier I was actually seeing them in my zoos. One thing for those of you new to the channel, I'm that one reptile guy we all know, therefore the spectacle game was something I was very quick to defend in that video. I don't want to repeat the video, so I'll link it in the comments so you can see my points repeated over gameplay of Subnautica Below Zero. Why I had to defend the caiman? Because one of the big complaints people had was some silly claim to do with the amount of crocodilians in the game or something similar. I don't think stuff that memorable comes around very often. A tier from me. The Conservation DLC. It was the only DLC that tries to carry a message, that being conservation. It had scenery dedicated to it, it added animals that were seriously in need of help, even the first animal in the game that is extinct in the wild. Conservation was the only message important to DLC, and I can respect that, heavily. Another leopard, the Scimitar Horned the Siamang, and the Przewalski's horse. It also added the axolotl, which I know if we had to add an exhibit animal, that would be it. It didn't follow a geographical theme like the others, it just wanted you to see what we were going to lose. And while I respect that message, which in a way I think makes it worthy of a really high ranking actually, if we're ranking it off just animals and decoration, it is sadly not very good. Well, good, but nowhere near good enough compared to what we had back in 2020. It's a massive shame, but the message behind it is of such importance, that's why. But I can't help but feel regretful myself that I had to put it this far down. But this is a D tier. Following on with D tiers, we have the Twilight DLC. I enjoyed the architecture, and I have actually used quite a lot of the decoration and the props. However, this is a very situational DLC. If you aren't making a spooky area of your park, you are using nothing at all from this DLC. The red fox was highly requested after the Arctic fox was added around a year before. However, everything else is just small animals. I don't hate smaller animals, but to have a DLC based on tiny animals just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't have much of a selling point as if it had larger animals. It did, however, add in the walkthrough exhibit, which was actually one of the greatest things added in the DLC. This DLC also, with this new exhibit type, gave us our first exhibit mammal, the Egyptian fruit bat. Overall, however, this is my least favourite DLC. You'll only ever use it for a small animal section of a zoo, and if you don't want anything spooky, it might as well just be a really low quality animal pack for you. At least the conservation DLC had a message that could be used everywhere. Not this one. The raccoon was a nice addition, and so was the skunk and the wombat. It's just that quite a few of them were just really unlikely to be used, with the exception of the raccoon, the bat, and the fox. I don't hate small animals on their own, but as the sole point of a DLC, it seems just no. Why? At least it brought us back to DLC campaigns that weren't the timed ones you had with the update anyway, which was nice. Still a D tier though. We finish off 2022 with the Grasslands DLC, another animal pack. It's a trend with animal packs, animals that you don't know but find interesting, and the ones that you know well. Same here. Actually, this DLC feels more like a part 2 to both the Australia and South America DLCs. You get 5 butterflies, the 9-banded armadillo, maned wolf, emu, caracal, striped hyena, blue wildebeest and a redneck wallaby. See why I made those comparisons now? This DLC has the highest number of animals in any DLC, that being 12. However, 5 butterflies seems a little too much for me, even if they get the bonus being the first exhibit animals that coexist with different species, which are all themselves, and hasn't been used since. However, this pack has a flaw. When I said that there's a trend with interesting, unknown and iconic animals, this pack also has some pretty forgettable content when compared to everything else. It's a bit below average for a pack, but I'm going to give it a higher up on the C tier. 2023 started with the Tropical DLC. What an improvement from what we've had earlier on. We get an Indonesian themed DLC featuring the Asian water monitor, the sloth, the fossa and the Red River hog and the lar gibbon. Why is it Indonesian themed when most of the animals aren't Indonesian? I can hear some of you asking. The answer is, every other tropical place in the world has had their architecture put in this game, and Indonesian architecture is heavily underrated and needs appreciation. And honestly, I don't care whether it fits or not in the DLC, we just need it. Also, reptiles. I'll put this in a B tier. The only thing is, people are right, we really should have had at least one bird. Last June gave us the Arid DLC, Animal Pack. This DLC gave us the dromedary camel, the addax, the dama gazelle, African crested porcupine, sandcat, black rhinoceros, desert horned viper and a donkey with a name that would take too much time to explain if I just said it. Now, this is what the Africa DLC tried to be, somewhat. Still very desert based, but an improvement. More rhinos, a DLC snake, 2 antelopes and another camel. It's not a surprise that this is just a B tier for me. Only downside being that it is very based around Africa and West Asia. There's cool stuff in the deserts in South America. There's a whole load of stuff in North America. About in the Outback. Speaking of the Outback, the next DLC is the Oceania DLC. Well, the only thing those two have in common is the location. The Oceania DLC is very focused not on Australia itself, but the little islands around it. We have ourselves the North Island brown kiwi, the quokka, the spectacled flying fox, the Tasmanian devil, and the little penguin. Just like the Twilight DLC, we have some very small animals. However, the scenery and the architecture in this DLC is, in my opinion, the best of any DLC, and probably the best in the whole game. Here are some pictures of them. Pretty cool stuff, right? And we've definitely been due for some good architecture, except for the Tropical DLC, that doesn't count, that was good. Plus, the animals and the scenery fit together so well, I almost don't even care that they're microscopic again. Plus, we have a new map style because of this DLC, the Temperate Oceanian Island map. C tier. The Eurasia DLC is the second to last one. This gives us the Pheasant, the Wild Boar, Mute Swan, Sloth Bear, Zyger, Tarkin and Herman's Tortoise. This DLC is another animal pack. These animals are again a balance of unknown and iconic. However, I do feel like a lot of animals in this DLC will go unused, despite every one of them being unique in some way, which is a massive shame, because the worst thing is having an animal that is unique and has something really interesting about them, but compared to everything else, they just sort of go unused. And finally, we have the Barnyard DLC. This is the most requested of all of the DLCs. This DLC is another animal pack, but it's a bit different in that it sacrifices one of the animals, making there only be 7, but in that place puts an entirely new type of scenery, barnyard pieces. This stuff involves all sorts of little decorations and also some new facilities like hand washing stations and farm-themed walkthrough enclosures. A realistic DLC that makes you feel like you're in a petting zoo. It gives you not only unique animals from the jungle, but iconic stuff like pigs, chickens, Highland cattle, goats, alpacas, donkeys and sheep. Look at these images and tell me this isn't an A tier. If this is the final DLC for Planet Zoo, they did a really good job. So, this is the tier list. As you can see, I never once had to use the E or F tiers, so I'll go ahead and remove them, and I'm quite happy we never had to use them. Once I do, you can see that the average DLC quality here is around a B tier, so not very bad at all, considering that between S, A, B, C, D, E and F, C would be the middle point, so they're all above average, mostly. So thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.